Hi, everybody on the replay. Let's let people in, shall we? Hello, hello. How are you all tonight? Happy night, too. How is everybody? You've had a beautiful Friday. Natalie looks nice and cozy in the dark. Hi, Kim.
How are you this evening?
Oh, I'm wonderful.
Can I share a little magic that's already happened?
Yes, you can. This is the best possible start.
So, on my way to your meeting last night, I got a call to make a listing appointment for this morning. And I thought, well, I've been working with them. That's fine. So then I realized that a brochure that we had printed in the listing that we had was misprinted, and I needed to go to the office to get the new ones. While I was leaving the office, the owner of the office called needing somebody. She had an offer, and could I write it up for her, please? $822,000. I have an accepted offer.
Yes! That's amazing.
Because the truth is, it was going to go to whoever was answering the phone.
And you were there.
And I was there because of this, I'm certain. Well, thank you.
Gosh. That's amazing. Can I ask, I know you shared in the comments, but can I ask some of the stuff that like showed up and shifted for you last night?
So all I could hear was my mom saying, if I can just get to Friday. Notice that today is Friday. The thing is, I don't think that way. I just assume it's coming. And I assume that it'll be there when I need it. But like your story, I get sloppy with just paying things because for me, it's the time. Oh, it's the 15th. It's shocking to me every single 15th. So a lot of these, And by the way, I didn't sleep a wink last night.
Sorry about that. Liz, that makes so much sense. Liz has wrote in the comments, I just realized that my brain is your mom's words. Yeah. I mean, I think who here can relate to this idea of like, oh, I just have to make it to payday, or I just have to make it till I sell another client, or I just have to sell it until like there's always something that lives in the future. And if we can just get to that future place, then that's where we'll be safe. And it's every payday, right? And it gets us really, I mean, look, I want to ground this in the reality that there is real, like,
there's real money here.
Scarcity is real, right? Like there's real moments where you're like, I have food that I need to put on the table and I don't have enough money for it, right? So all of this work, I'm never going to be the kind of person who's like, it's just an energy. Like it is an energy with very real implications, right? But we can really get caught in this idea, and this is actually the perfect kind of segue, like, teeing us up to where I wanted to go tonight, which is that we can just get so trapped in this idea that whatever it is that we want lives in the future. And if we can get to that future place, then we will be safe, then we will be happy, then we will be loved, then we will
10 pounds lighter. Right. We'll be more tan. We'll have fewer bags under our eyes.
Right. I mean, if you map it onto, it's so funny. Hi, Deb. If you map it onto dating or dieting, actually, just to like kind of sometimes it's helpful to have an example outside of money. Like it's the trap of like, oh, when I lose 5 pounds, I will feel great. And then you lose 5 pounds and you're like, oh, I guess I still need to lose 5 more, right? Because it's never actually about the number, whether it's a number of dollar bills or a number of pounds on a scale, right?
Let's write that down, shall we? It's not ever about the number. Let's write that down.
Guess what? I have a whole unit about that in our class. It's 6 months long that you can all sign up for.
I'll help you with that.
Perfect. Thank you all so much for coming, whether you were here last night or whether you're jumping in. Like, No worries. We have got you wherever you are. Those of you whose videos are on, thank you. It's so nice to see you. Those of you who have them off, it's also totally fine. I know that's cozy. It's the evening for most of us. So those of you who are just joining, Kim was sharing some magic that already happened for her. This huge sale that kind of fell into her lap because she serendipitously had to be pulled into the office at exactly the right moment. Hey, Sean. Um, but I do want to make up, like, I want to make some space to kick us off. If anyone wants to share anything, anyone who's here last night, anything that you like, a key takeaway, right? Something about last night that stood out for you in one way or another. Steph, yeah, I'm so glad. And like, so Steph saying that she's just couldn't come last night. Again, no worries. I'm not a linear person, which means you can drop in at any point on this, right? But yeah, if anyone wanted to share, either take yourself on mute and share, or drop in the comments some key takeaway from last night that has percolated or risen up for you in one way or another, something that shifted, some aha moment that you had. I will share my own aha moment as you take a moment to kind of consider yours, which was my 6 pages of notes was maybe ambitious. I'm so passionate about this topic because I've lived it very intensely for a long time. So today we have a nice, concise, single sheet of paper. So I feel pretty good about our ability to get through it tonight.
I love your enthusiasm and your optimism.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You know, I've taught my kids, I said, if you believe in yourself, you can do anything. So I believe in myself. So if anyone else love one sheets, yes, thank you, Ashley. Thank you. So okay, I wanted to start by I wanted to start by reviewing very briefly kind of 3 key things that we talked about last night, just to get you, just to like catch us up, get us all on the same page, and also review is always helpful for all of us, right? So the first thing that I want to talk about as in terms of kind of the key pieces from last night is that reminding us that we don't manifest from our thoughts, we manifest from our beliefs, right? So this idea, this pressure to think a certain way causes us tons of angst, creates this pattern of spiritual gaslighting of ourselves, right? And it causes us to really reject ourselves, because what happens all the time is when a wounded part of us acts out, he, she, they send thoughts our way and emotions our way to try to indicate, hi, something's going on, some part of you needs attention. When we kind of spiritually gaslight ourselves, which is to say, reject that in favor of positive thinking, we're reinforcing the wounded part of ourselves, right? Because our wounded parts are always the rejected parts of ourselves, right? It's the kid in 3rd grade who got bullied, right? And so they show up afraid of rejection, and we're annoyed and exhausted by their fear of rejection, and we reject them all over again, right? So one of the things that we really want to try to do is recognize that our thoughts are not, like, we don't need to control our thoughts. It can be helpful to not over attach to your thoughts and kind of get caught in a snowball, but it's your beliefs that actually start shifting things in really significant ways. So if we use our thoughts and emotions as I'm seeing Hansel and Gretel, right? Like as the breadcrumb trail to understand our belief structure, that's where we can start to make really big shifts, right? Also, then we're making big shifts just in being more compassionate to ourselves, which just makes us happier to begin with, right? So that's point number 1. Point number 2, I already need a sip of water. Point number 2 is that your experiences about money are signaling things to you, right? They are signaling to you where those wounded parts live. So we have a tendency to think that our experiences about money are punishment, again, because of our conditioning, right? That I should be better at this, or I should know how this works. Or it just makes us feel terrified, right? Because money is tied up in safety, it's tied up in love, it's tied up in freedom. And so when our safety is threatened, right, we get really scared. So when money experiences are showing up that aren't what we would like, what's important to remember is that we're not being punished, we're not in trouble, we're not doing something wrong, but some wounded part of ourselves, we're being shown this pattern as a way, and we're going to dig on this part deeper today, but that some wounded part of us is being activated, or we're being shown where we need some attention, right? The example we used last night is like, people keep jumping in your DMs asking you for free shit, and it's because you have porous boundaries, right? And you're not comfortable asserting your needs over other people's needs. And so you're seeing that reflected back energetically in people asking you for free stuff all the time, because it's an opportunity for you to heal that, inner 7-year-old who didn't get it, didn't learn that, didn't get an opportunity to manage boundaries in a safe way, to sort of reparent your inner 7-year-old by saying to all the people in your DMs, sorry, I'm not available for free stuff, but you can book a reading for $400 over here, right? So that's point number 2, right? So we don't manifest from our thoughts, we manifest our reality from our beliefs. Point number 2 is that our money experiences are signaling something that in some way needs our attention. We're not being punished by them. Hi, kitty. And point number 3, your body and your subconscious just believe wild shit about money that doesn't seem to make sense, right? Because all these wires get crossed, especially when we're little kids, or before we even get into past lives, ancestral stuff, which you guys know I'm all here for, and is totally part of the picture. But before you even get in there, right? Because these wires get crossed in these weird and confusing ways, because you're 4 and you're trying to figure out how the world works, your body then and your subconscious are holding onto these beliefs that just you're probably not even aware of, and they don't make sense, and they're not supporting you anymore. And so the game is to figure out, to use your thoughts and your emotions to start to unpack and understand what you are actually believing, to use the unpleasant experiences around money and finances to help to lead you to where there's these wounded parts, and then use quantum healing. I mean, I'm biased. That's a great approach. Use quantum healing, which my modality is the Akashic Records. Liz, who's here, is an example, does amazing EFT work around this, right? So there's lots of different modalities. Mine is the Akashic Records, but once you understand the patterns and the beliefs and what part of you is being activated, then you can dig in with the healing and actually just integrate and release, integrate and release, integrate and release, right? So does that make sense? That's kind of, we talked for like almost 2 hours yesterday, and that's the like surface top line on it. Does anyone have questions or thoughts about that before we move on? Nadia, are you eating popcorn? It looks delicious. All right, so where are we going to go tonight? The thing that I want us to think about tonight is the way to really understand the patterns around money that are showing up right now, and start to understand what it is showing you and what kind of wounded parts are being activated in this underneath, right? Does that make sense? So I want us to yesterday we talked about a lot of different topics, and we did some belief statement work, which I also want to say, we did the belief statement work. Yesterday we did muscle testing, and muscle testing is confusing for some people. And so if anyone has questions about it, or if anybody's like, I don't know if it worked or not, you can send me a DM and we can talk it through. Okay. So I wanted to put that out there. But yesterday was sort of like broad, and tonight I want to kind of go deeper for us, right? I want us to look at maybe one particular pattern that's showing up for you right now that feels really activated, or maybe minorly activated, depending on what pops up. And I want us to kind of hold space, walk through a journey of how you might begin to understand what that pattern is showing you around a wounded belief system and a wounded part of yourself. Does that make sense? Okay. So the first thing I want to say is that I need more water. So what I want to talk about tonight is, I want to start with this idea of self-sabotage. Who here has heard the term self-sabotage, right? It's super common. Who here has blamed themselves and said, oh, I've been self-sabotaging, right? I want us all to strike that from our language forever and ever and ever, starting tonight. Because here's the thing. Everything we do is an attempt to keep us safe, right? Every behavior that we do is an attempt to keep us safe. We just sometimes have fucked up ideas around what safety is, right? For example, maybe you're someone who struggles to hold on to money, right? Maybe money comes in and goes out just as quickly, right? What that indicates is that there is some part of you that does not feel safe holding on to money. It doesn't mean you are a bad person. It doesn't mean that you're self-sabotaging, as in you're out to get yourself. It means there is some loud, active part of yourself who thinks it's safer to not have money. The question is to figure out why she, he, they believes that, and then figure out how to allow them to actually feel safe having money and holding on to money. The problem is that most of the time what we do is just beat ourselves up for, in this example, having money and getting rid of it, having money and getting rid of it, right? We just get in this kind of shame spiral, or this guilt spiral, or this like mean inner critic comes out, right? And so we are again rejecting ourselves all over again, right? So if we are experiencing things that we don't enjoy, and it's because some wounded part of us has like taken the driver's seat, she's wounded because she's been rejected, and then we're just pissed at her for ruining everything, and we reject her all over again, she just gets louder, right? It doesn't go away, right? Like rejecting yourself doesn't ever solve the problem, right? It's why it's like, it's been 20 years. Why am I still doing the same thing over and over again? Well, it's because you need something in the experience, right? It's not because you're bad or lazy or stupid or irresponsible. It's because something about that experience is recreating safety for you. The problem is our brain, with its crossed wires, is confusing safety with familiarity. Mm-hmm. So last night we spoke about the up and down, up and down, up and down experience that a lot of us have with money, right? That's based on an idea that your brain, your subconscious, your body holds that this is familiar and therefore it must be safe, right? And then the part of you that's an adult, that is a member of society, is saying like, no, actually, if we could just consistently have money, that would be much safer, right? But that doesn't feel safe or accessible to us for whatever reason. So again, we often try to use willpower alone to try to like corral this kind of self-destructive part of ourselves, right? We try to like rein him, her, them in, and what ends up happening is it doesn't last, right? Because we know from science, from psychology research that willpower is a finite resource. So if there's some wounded part of you who for some reason it doesn't feel safe with consistent money, feels only safe with a roller coaster, and you think, well, I'm just going to fix this problem by budgeting better and having stronger willpower, your willpower will run out, because that's the nature of willpower. We know it's a finite resource, right? There's I think it's called The Willpower Effect. If anyone's interested in this topic, is an interesting like pop psychology book on this topic. But that's why, for example, if you like have a really, really intense work day and you get home, like you just don't have the energy to like make this really healthy meal, it's because your willpower was used. It's a finite resource. So it's been used throughout the day, like through this stressful day, and you get home and you just actually don't have the willpower anymore to make yourself eat the salad. And it's why instead you eat the quote unquote unhealthy thing, right? Again, it's not self-sabotage. It's because in this case, you've run out of the gasoline that is willpower. And most of us are trying to just willpower our way through changing our financial reality and our experiences with money. And it's why we keep getting in this loop. Like, I don't know, I might be dating myself. When I was a kid, my family loved the Austin Powers movies. And there's this scene where Nadia is saying, woman after my own heart, 20 different drinks at the desk. It's true, because I got so thirsty last night. I had 2 glasses of water and tea, and I thought that would be enough. There are now 2 glasses of water, tea, and a giant thermos. I think we'll be good. We'll find out. So, okay. So Hannah's saying yes to Austin Powers. So there's this scene in this movie, which I don't know. I bet this movie does not hold up. I'm just going to go on a limb and guess. But there's this scene in the movie where he's like this, like, you know, bad, he's like he's like a bad spy figure. He's like not, I don't know if anyone hasn't seen it, but anyway, he's like in this little like golf cart in a tunnel in Dr. Evil's lair. And he somehow gets the golf cart stuck between the two walls, and he dramatically drives forward and then slams in reverse and drives backward and then dramatically slides forward, right? And he literally, and like whatever villain is coming towards him is like running towards him, and he's just spending his time slamming backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards because it's not wide enough. And you're laughing the whole time because you're like, just get out of the car and run, right? But he just keeps like really like slamming in drive, slamming into reverse. That's what we are doing when we're trying to like willpower and strong arm our way into a different kind of experience with money, right? It's like we keep using the same tools and they're not working, and it's not our fault, but it's because we have some programming around what we should be experiencing with money, and our subconscious is really good at its job, right? And so we're gonna just keep looping again and again, trying to replicate safety. Like all we are doing, we're like a heat-seeking missile, but for safety, right? We're just going to keep trying to find safety. The problem is, or not, the goal then is to help our inner child, our subconscious, our nervous system, all of these parts of ourselves actually like redefine what safety is, right? Okay, Rhonda's saying that she just used a GIF of this in her client's email, and I need, Rhonda, can you please email me this GIF? Because I use this example actually all the time, and I didn't know there was a GIF version of it, and that would be a real benefit in my life. And then Nadia is backing us up with some human design stats about how willpower is not going to work for everybody, right? So in addition to, you know, I'm referencing pop psychology, but here's another set of information around human design that it's also not going to be a consistent tool for people, which I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you, Rhonda. So the question, so the first thing that I always like to say around our kind of our money triggers, our lessons, whatever it is to engage with them with curiosity and compassion. So I spoke about this briefly last night, but I want to just underscore it because I do think it's really important. So let's say you're experiencing something that you don't want to be experiencing, right? All these people keep showing up in your DMs. Or, well, actually, we'll keep using the same example of kind of the roller coaster, because yesterday there were a lot of head nodding that this is something they can relate to, right? So you're having the up and down. Most of us, again, get really mad and judgmental at ourselves. Or maybe we kind of just pretend it's not happening, right? Or like ostrich, head in the sand about it. Those are often the two responses. The problem with that, again, is that it's already a wounded part of ourselves. And oh my gosh, Rhonda just sent me the link to this. I'm so excited. It's going out in tomorrow's email, so you all can be excited. Okay, so most of us, again, we're judging the part of ourselves, right? But if we can instead bring in curiosity and compassion, then it softens, it introduces acceptance. And in that space, then really big things start to shift, right? Think about one of the ways I teach learning to read the Akashic Records is I talk about this little intuition exercise, which I think is actually relevant here. So it's that when we are trying to, how do I want to reframe this? There's kind of three different energetic ways in which we engage with a thing, with a belief, with a reality, right? Sometimes we cling to it really, really tightly because we want to control it. Sometimes we like do the ostrich thing and we're kind of avoidant of it. And then other times we can kind of hold it gently with a kind of neutrality where we're not making it right or wrong. And our goal, whenever possible, is to engage with this neutrality where something's neither right or wrong. And applying curiosity and self-compassion often allows us to be in this slightly detached place where we're still being kind, but it creates a little bit of distance so that we're not doing the controlling thing, right? Because you can't, if what we're trying to do is basically this is all about shadow work, right? So if what we're trying to do is really understand and integrate the wounded parts of ourselves, we can't do it by avoiding and ignoring them. We also can't do it by trying to control them, because we've been trying to control them for our whole life, right? We have to engage with them a little bit differently. And the way I see it is that I see these wounded parts of ourselves as actual parts. So this is also based on psychology. It's called parts psychology. It's an approach to psychology in which we think of ourselves, for all that we are whole, we think of ourselves as all these different parts, right? There's the part of you whose parents got divorced when she was in fourth grade and was really wounded by that experience. There's the part of you who, uh, loves to be really competitive and loves to win, right? There's the part of you who is really ambitious, but was taught at an early age that it's unseemly for women to be ambitious, and so she has this kind of like tense relationship to her own ambition, right? So we have all these different parts of ourselves, and at different moments in time, one part is in the driver's seat, right? So we tend to think that, because we tend to think of ourselves like as a monolith. But if you start engaging with this idea of part psychology, it can be helpful to pause and think, well, who's in the driver's seat right now? And those of you who've done inner child work, I'm sure, have engaged with this idea, right? Which is like, oh, my inner 7-year-old is driving the car today. That's why X, Y, and Z happened, right? But the way this would work, thinking through like a money trigger, is to say, okay, I keep having this up and down, up and down, up and down experience. Because I'm engaging with that with curiosity and compassion, I'm recognizing that it's because that creates some kind of safety for me. Where did I learn that inconsistency was familiar and therefore safe? Where did I learn that consistency was somehow dangerous and threatening? Right? That's the part. And then you might say, well, I'm making up all these examples. Although, because I'm psychic, there's probably someone who's like, my parents did get divorced when I was in fourth grade, right? But you know, you're the person whose parents got divorced in fourth grade, and you think, oh, that really pulled the rug out from underneath me. And before that, everyone was fighting all the time. And so, yeah, it's my inner fourth grader is the one who, sees the world as it's only a matter of time till the rug gets pulled out from underneath you. And so then what you can do is figure out what your inner fourth grader needs in order to feel safe, right? So then you can start to figure out, how do you reparent that part of yourself? How do you integrate that part of yourself? And again, I use the record, so we do a meditative journey around actually meeting with this part of yourself and seeing what she needs and doing that healing and integration and release work. Again, so that you're making a spaciousness. So quantum healing, as we talked about last night, is always about creating space for yourself. So is this making sense so far, or do people have questions? Okay. So I gotta engage with one of my 7 cups of water. Hold on. So, the question, so again, once we recognize there's no such thing as self-sabotage, it's just some part of me who thinks this is familiar and therefore safe. And we agree, at least temporarily, to engage around this issue with curiosity and compassion. Then we want to ask 2 key questions. Where and when did I learn this conditioning? And how can I help that wounded part of myself feel safe now? I'll say it again. When and where did I learn this conditioning? And how can I help that wounded part of me feel safe now? You might end up swapping out that word safe depending on what wounded part of you is showing up, right? Maybe what that wounded part of you needs is to feel really loved, or maybe what she needs is to feel a kind of sovereignty and freedom, right? So you might, that safety thing might get swapped out for other emotional needs. But for the sake of simplicity, I thought I'd anchor into safety because it's such a primary way that money shows up for us. And so, you know, we're going to walk through tonight some an Akashic Records meditation, and we will meet with a self, and we'll do some healing on your own. There's a bunch of different ways you can do this, right? Because yes, I have a 6-month program. I think you should all take it. It's going to be amazing. And also, I want everyone who comes to walk away feeling empowered to do this, a version of this for themselves, because that's the whole name of the game, right? So I will just say that once you ask these questions, which personally I'm a fan of journaling through them, sometimes it's as simple as writing a letter to that part of yourself, or sitting in meditation and inviting that part of yourself forward, or going for a walk and talking out loud to that part of yourself. Or maybe it's recognizing, ooh, this part of myself is furious. And before she can feel safe, she needs a chance to like express her rage. And so maybe the way that I make her feel safe is I go to the beach and I scream and I throw rocks in the water as big as I can find until I'm done and I've let some of that anger out. True story. I've done that multiple times. I recommend it often to clients. It's an amazing therapy if you need access to your anger, especially if you're someone who doesn't always have access to anger. So, you know, how can I make this part of, this part of myself to feel safe, isn't a matter of like, how do I mollify you? How do I make you go away? How do I get you smaller? You're so inconvenient. But it's more about like, what do you need? What do you need to express? Right. So maybe that's the third, that's actually the other question I would add to this list is like, what does this part of you need to say? What does this part need acknowledged? How do they need you to bear witness to who they are, who is of course also you? And so I would actually insert that. So it's, when and where did I learn this conditioning? How does this part of you need you to bear witness to their truth? And then how can I help that wounded part of me feel safe? Right? Because of course we need to feel seen and heard before we can like shut up and go away, right? Like otherwise we're just reinforcing rejection. Because here's the thing, the desire to reject this part of ourselves is very sneaky, right? So it will just try to backdoor its way in by being like, oh, I'm trying to integrate, I promise, but you're just actually trying to reject yourself again, right? So we just have to be kind of mindful of that. And it's a practice. It's not something that you're like have to be perfect at, right? Perfection not required. So that's a phrase I use a lot for myself because I'm a recovering perfectionist. And the other day my son was like, what does that mean? And I was like, oh, you're 4. You don't know what any of those words are. Like he was like, perfection required. Like it's just this phrase that I chant that he's like, I don't understand, Mom. You're not speaking my language. Okay. So how are we doing now so far? Any questions, any thoughts, any aha moments happening for people? Okay. And you can also feel free, if if it's easier for you to talk, then right, you can feel free to come off mute if you have questions, right? So, so here's where, so we've talked, okay. So we've talked so far, Tina's saying so many ahas. Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Oh, thank you. So we've talked a little bit about how there are these wounded parts of ourselves, what they need, how we can engage with them, right? There's this other piece that I think is really important. And when this dropped in for me, it like shifted everything. And I want to give full credit. This idea was not my own at first, but it has become such an integral part of how I do this work that I want to talk about it and I want to unpack it here. So I have this podcast, Hello Universe, and I had this guest whose name is Aaron Rose, who's a super, super interesting person. And I totally recommend you follow him on social media. And we were talking about, I don't even remember exactly what we were talking about. Oh, we were talking about this experience of wanting Kim saying divorced parents at 7. Yeah, I was like, I know that that's coming up for other people. I have been mad since I was 7 about uneven equal pay. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And also it's ancestral, right? So you get this double whammy of your own inner child who's mad about something and then the ancestral lineage of it. So yeah, I really think you should go to the water and scream and throw rocks. It will feel really good. So I'm having this conversation And also, that's just an aside, tonight, because I'm trying to stay somewhat concise, we're focusing on inner child, but all of this does also loop back to past life, to ancestral, to cultural conditioning, right? I am a big believer for all that, like, I mean, I work in the records, right? I love going to past lives. I love tying it into these big cosmic patterns, but I also believe that every lesson we need to learn, we're learning in this lifetime. So you can find the wounding in your inner child more often than not if it needs your attention, right? So if it feels helpful, if it feels resonant, absolutely, like, let's go dig in these past lives, let's go look at the ancestry. But if that doesn't feel accessible to you, stay in the space of inner child, that it will get you everything you need, right? So um so Aaron Rose, in this episode, I think I was talking through, it was about money, whatever I was sharing, and it was about this experience of like wanting and hungering for something, right? Because that's been on my experience around money for a long time, right? It's the wanting and the hungering. And Aaron Rose said, I learned a long time ago that if you think that receiving something is going to prove something that doesn't serve you, God will not give you the thing. Let me explain that a little bit more. So, and Aaron uses the word God. We can substitute universe, divine love, source, fill in the blank. But it was this idea that if you believe, let's say you believe, let's keep with the safety theme, that if you have a $10,000 month, then you will be safe. That is reinforcing an idea that you are not inherently safe. Or it is reinforced, or perhaps you have an idea that if you get 10,000 followers, then you will be loved. It is to receive that would reinforce the idea that you are not already infinitely loved, right? So I'm stepping out of the space of money for a second to kind of neutralize it a little bit, right? So I'm walking around thinking, if only I can get 10,000 followers, then I'll know I'm legitimate. I'll know people like me. I know people will care about me, right? And tomorrow God shows up and says, here's your 10,000 followers. Guess what? I have just said, it's just been reinforced from me. Yes. Okay. Now people will love me. Now people do love me. I've made it. Right. And we've all signed up for a deeper spiritual lesson, which is to remember that we're whole, remember that we're infinitely loved, remember that God, source, divine love is always trying to take care of us, right? That we are infinitely held. That's the lesson we signed up for, right? And so when we are attached to an outcome because we want to reinforce a belief that doesn't serve our highest self, source actually will not deliver that thing because our beliefs are more toxic, right? It is more important that we shift the inner belief than it is that we get the money or the followers or to quit the job or whatever the thing is, right? And so this is where we can feel like we're in a holding pattern of like, why isn't it happening? And then we start thinking, what am I doing wrong? I must be being punished, right? We tend to really we can really kind of spiral on these topics, but what we're actually, and this is where I talk about, like, I just think the way we talk about money, I just think it's wrong most of the time, because what's actually happening is that there's a belief that needs to change, not because you're being punished, not because you're doing it wrong, but because source is trying to get you to realize how fucking magical you are, right? Another example of this, and again, I use my kids for example all the time. If my kids are whining, I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, right? And so say, for example, I was about to, the other day, I was about to take them I was driving, I was going to surprise them by taking them to the playground, right? We're like driving along. And then for whatever reason, they start whining about going to the playground. And they're like, why aren't we? I want to go to the playground. I want to go to the playground. And I was planning, I was going to go, we're making a made up scenario. I mean, they whine all the time, but this scenario is made up. So I was like, I'm going to go to the grocery store and then I'm going to take them to the playground, right? And we're driving to the grocery store and they start whining. Why can't we go to the grocery store now? Or why can't we go to the playground now? And they're whining about that. Well, now I can't now I have to parent them, right? I have to do something to reinforce that the whining didn't get them the thing that they wanted, right? That doesn't mean I have to punish them, but it means I can't then immediately give in. Like, I'm dealing with this kind of a lot with my daughter who's 2, because she goes from fine to complaining, right? She goes from fine to whining. She doesn't have a like middle. She's got a lot of fire in her chart. So she doesn't go from like, there's no like, oh, I'm gonna express my need and see if anyone meets it. Oh, they didn't, now I'm mad. She's like, just like here, and then she's here. Right? And so when she flips up to here, I can't give her the stuffed animal that she was asking for, even if I had no problem giving it to her, because what I'm doing is I'm reinforcing her like here to here, right? I'm reinforcing that she's like yelling and whining and crying instantly over something. And so I actually have to withhold it, not to punish her, but because I need to not reinforce this cross that if you yell and scream, you get what you want, right? Does this make sense? So it's the same thing, like God, source, divine love is trying to like help us remember that we're whole, and so can't give us things that are toxic towards that end. Does that make sense? And so I think this is really, really, really important, because what it did for me when I started to see that and I started to apply that was to think, okay, first of all, I'm not in it alone. So when I'm asking these questions of like, when did I learn this pattern and what do I need to do to integrate it? I'm not just asking myself, I can ask God, like, okay, what do I need to know? Show me how to integrate this wounded part of myself, because we're on the same page, right? And it just helped me stop seeing things like I was failing, which is some conditioning that I carry, right? I'm really hard on myself. So yeah, and I've seen that Liz is saying she listened. Yeah, Liz was had this crazy experience where she was driving her boat like through a gale, and this was the podcast that she listened to, which is a really good one because it's very soulful.
I just needed your voice in that moment, and I got Aaron too.
It's also funny that you're here tonight and that I'm talking about this podcast episode, because it like keeps coming up. Anyways, this is clearly it was an important conversation that Spirit needs Liz to know about. So so I think this is really important because it just helps us recognize that we're not being punished, right? Like I see all the time, I'm in a couple like Facebook groups that are about manifestation, and I see all the time people in there like, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? I'm not doing it right. I'm messing this up, right? Yeah, we do need a follow-up podcast about the yacht and the storm. Yes, I agree with that.
I'll come on your pod and I'll talk about it.
Yeah. And I think that that's really helpful, because again, if we're trying to aim for curiosity and compassion, any way in which we can access curiosity and compassion is helpful, which is to say any way that we can be kind to ourselves is in service of shifting our reality around money, right? And so what you can see, the thing that I think you're probably already seeing is like, this is going to change the way money shows up for you, but it's also changing the way you show up for you, right? And so the secret here is that we're talking about money, but we're also really talking about like self-love and personal expansion, right? We're talking about evolution of yourself through money healing. It's looking at your money triggers, because for some of us, you know, I'm a believer that we sign up for different schools, right? If money is a place that is consistently painful for you, you signed up for money school, right? Like, and so it's a place where you're here to learn lessons, but most of us haven't been equipped with the language of those lessons. So we're just slamming our head against the wall and like writing a bunch of budgets, right? It's not working because it's not actually about that, right? It's about what these kind of triggers and experiences are offering so that you can divest yourself from all of this bullshit conditioning, right? Hannah says, I recently heard that money vibrates at the same frequency as trust, and that really resonated. Oh, I love that so much, because one of the big things that I really believe is that what money can ultimately teach us is how to trust. I actually literally wrote it down right here. Can you see that? That money teaches us how to trust in yourself, trust in your gifts, trust in your future. If you follow these kind of unpleasant experiences around money and let them be your teacher through this process we kind of just started to outline, it can teach you how to actually be in trust. And this was like one of the biggest shifts for me, and why I'm so passionate about this work, because as someone who spent our entire 20s with a chronic anxiety disorder and spent her entire 20s and part of her 30s completely stressed about money all the time. Part of my 30s, I had a chronic anxiety disorder too. Let's be real. So all of that was for a long time, right? And it wasn't until I started to actually use money to teach me things instead of slamming up against it that I started to actually feel safe in my body and start trusting things. Right. So now I've had experiences, since making these shifts where I don't have the amount, the numbers in the bank account might vary, but the trust is there. We talked about last night how we get the $10,000 check and all of a sudden we're more scared than we were before, right? I now have experiences, and I've watched this for clients where the trust is there because we've gone deep enough into our intuition and our inner knowing that we know, oh, I need to act here, I need to hold back here. This is a yes, this is a no. I'm being led here. And so when I get a ping that says, oh, invest in this, hire this photographer, this brand person, take your family on this vacation, I can hear that and I can feel that it is true for me in my body, and I can feel that it's a safe investment regardless of the number, right? And it literally, it's hilarious how magically and perfectly it works out because I have uncovered an ability to recognize trust in my body when it comes to safety and money. And like, if you told this to 25-year-old Kylie, I wouldn't have known what those words even meant, right? So yes, I'm a really, really, really big believer. And what I ultimately think, in parallel to, one of the ways I talk about trust a lot, and if anyone here from Heal Your Business Story, they're not. So in Heal Your Business Story, I talk about this a little bit, but one of the ways I teach about trust is that there's really two buckets of trust, right? So there's trust in yourself and there's trust in divine. And they're actually two different buckets. And some of us have more space in one than the other, right? So for a lot of us, some of us, we don't have trust in either, right? Then a lot of us maybe start cultivating a trust in ourselves. Like, I trust in my ability to make money, or I trust that I'm smart. I trust that I'm capable. I can make shit happen, right? I'm a really powerful healer. I trust in my own magic, right? And so we start working on that trust. But we also carry a lot of God wounding, right? There's a reason that I can't say God. There's a reason I have to say God, source, love, divine, right? Because a lot of us carry a lot of kind of toxic bullshit around around God and around, which shows up in source, right? So even if you're someone for whom like God is not, like, I still don't primarily relate to the divine through the lens of God. But I was having this belief, and I bet this is true for a lot of you, where I didn't actually trust the divine to take care of me. So at first, I didn't trust my ability to take care of myself, and I didn't trust that divine was going to take care of me. Eventually, I got to a place where I was like, okay, no, I have got this covered. I can take care of myself, but I'm on my fucking own because I don't know who this God person is, right? And then you don't even have to talk about the language of God, right? But I don't trust divine. I don't trust that anything outside of me can take care of myself. So I'm going to be in this little shell, right? Hard as a rock. Yeah. Liz is saying that's exactly where I am, right? So I can be in this little shell where it's like the exterior is hard as a rock, and I can make shit happen inside of this rock, but it's inside of this like armored protection. But it's exhausting because I'm running on only my own energy. I'm not allowing in that infinite source that's there to protect me. And if we remember that God, source, divine is constantly trying to remind us that we're whole and that we are infinitely loved, it's going to keep coming along with a big, huge sledgehammer and cracking open this egg that we built around ourselves, because it's trying to get us to realize that we are connected, that we are infinitely connected, that we're held, that we are protected and provided for, right? And if we're staying trapped in our shell of, nope, I've got this, but I've only got it by myself, you're just going to keep getting these cracks in it. Again, not to be punished, but because our soul signed up for a lesson of balance and integrating all of these parts. Does this make sense? Is this resonating for people? Right? So a quick gut check, and I'd love to hear in the comments if you feel called to share. Are you someone who, where are you feeling comfortable? Let's do this. Well, you just write in the comments, however you feel. If you feel comfortable, like you trust yourself, I'd love to know that. And if you feel comfortable, like you trust in God or divine or whatever language you use, I'd love to know that. And maybe you don't have an answer, but I bet for a lot of you, you had an instant, aha, I know where I am. And maybe you're at a place where you're like, I don't think I trust either. And that's also very okay. Kim, it depends on the day. Liz, trust me 90%, trust God about 10%. Yep, that totally tracks. I trust source more than myself. Natalie's saying, I trust the universe, God, right? So this is a really good point, right? I'm projecting my own story, which is I trusted myself long before I trusted God. For other people, it's going to be, I trust God. I have this really beautiful relationship with divine, but I don't know if I'm enough to pull off kind of what's being asked of me, right? And that's just making a good point that for me, it depends on the topic. Yeah, that's always a really good point. I think we can look at specifically within the realm of money, but even money, as I've said, is secretly about everything. So even that is not really a limited container. Tina's saying, I trust the divine completely. Trusting myself is really hard. So that's a helpful thing to recognize, right? When we think about, okay, if money is the frequency of trust, which is a phrase I really love, and I want to figure out who I can attribute that to because it's very helpful. To recognize like where you need to be giving your attention to, right? So this is a big thing for me. Like my guides kind of laughingly call me Sherlock Holmes a lot because I'm like kind of obsessed with following the pattern and following the clues to kind of understand. But in my mind, if we can put the puzzle pieces together and understand where to focus our attention, then things start to move really quickly, right? So now Tina, to use you as an example, knows, oh, okay, I'm going to really start looking specifically at trusting myself as it relates to money and see what that looks like. And Liz is going to think about what does it mean to trust God when it comes to being taken care of, right? So two different paths, but the same question can lead us both ways. Tiffany saying, I trust myself, but unsure about God. I don't trust that the universe will support me. I think this fear comes from seeing the starving artist archetype. Absolutely. I mean, and I will share in my own experience. I just had so much instability when I was growing up that I didn't trust that God was going to take care of me because I didn't know, and I had never experienced that, right? Like I hadn't experienced the kind of safe, predictable environment that I was craving. So I just internalized it as whatever safety I need to create it on my own terms and for myself, right? And so I do think, which is to say, and to use your comment as an example, Tiffany, I love this, and I think archetypes are really, really powerful, and I think the starving artist archetype is resonating for you because it's indicative of something that that it speaks to something deeper than that, right? To me, when we have these wounded parts of ourselves and we have these kind of misaligned beliefs, we will see them reflected in the external, right? We might recognize, oh, the starving artist narrative really speaks to me, but it speaks to you because of something that lives deeper within you, right? And so we could ask ourselves, why does the starving artist archetype seem so potent to me, and why does it have a stranglehold in my life, right? Which can be a helpful kind of deeper dive rather than the archetype itself. Does that make sense, right? So the external, the things that are resonating with us in the external are indicative of something deeper. And Tiffany's saying, because I've been raised to think that a career of my passion cannot provide a stable life. Yes. Okay. Tiffany, do me a favor, DM me after this, because I have the course I've taught a couple times called Heal Your Business Story. We actually go through a whole archetype about the starving artist, and I kind of want to just send you the meditation from that. So just DM me and I'll send you that. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. If anyone else wants the starving artist archetype, just as an aside, send me a DM and I'll send it to people. Okay. So because archetype work, I think, can be really, just again, as an aside, archetype work isn't part of the program coming out of this workshop, but you can do archetype work that's really similar to past life work, where you go on a meditative journey and you call up the archetype, or you just call up a past life in which you lived that archetype and do this exact same process that I outlined, right? When and who are you, past life, representing this archetype? What do you need to speak aloud to me? What do I need to understand from you? And how can I help that wounded part of myself? So you can use that same formula, whether it's with an archetype, a past life, etc. Okay. Okay, and then Nadia is saying, I grew up with mostly financial stability, but it was so emotional that it emotionally it was volatile. So I'm so glad you bring that up, Nadia, because when you're a kid, emotions, like the emotional volatility represents instability, in some ways more so than money, right? In lots of ways. When you're 4, like my son has a piggy bank, and he the other day came down with 3 quarters and said, I'm gonna buy a water table, which are these like, he picked out from a magazine, it was $700. He's like, I have enough now, right, Mom? Like, he doesn't know what financial stability is. But he knows what emotional stability is, right? Like the other day, my husband, this was the sweetest moment ever. My husband played me a song. He was like playing the guitar for the kids, and he played me a song, and I started happy crying, and my son was like, I'm confused by this, right? So when we're a kid, emotional instability tracks to those crossed wires around what is safe, what is unsafe, what are the conditions for safety, what are the conditions for lack of safety, and that will then get mapped onto money, right? So it makes perfect sense that whatever emotionally volatile patterns you learned as a kid are just getting smushed onto money, because it's a place for you to keep playing out the dynamic that in some way needs attention, right? So again, not being punished, it just needs your attention. So the pattern keeps playing out until we integrate it. So, okay, here's what I'm thinking. Do people have questions? Let's see. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, and so Natalie, I will also say, like, whenever we experience something that's like, Natalie C, whenever you're experiencing something that has like lots of ups and downs like that, to me, even though earlier today I was like, oh, it's you can go to your inner child, and that's true, but instantly I'm like, oh, right, if you're getting a pattern, if you're getting a karmic pattern that's like this loud, it probably has past life, right? So one way to indicate it is like, just how loud is the karmic pattern, right? Because I think all of our patterns are karmic, and so how loud is it? And if it's really, really loud, which is to say, if you keep having rather extreme versions of it, or really loud versions of it, then it can be helpful to then start looking at past life and ancestral, because all those things just kind of twist and tie around it, which you might already be doing. But that's just the like kind of intuitive thought that rises to me. Okay, here's what I'm thinking. If you have any comments or thoughts or things that you'd like a little more clarity on, I mean, and it can be a question about yourself, right? It doesn't have to just be the philosophy, but feel free to write any questions in the comments. What I am thinking is, I want to do the guided meditation for us. And after that, I think you're all going to just be like peaceful and floaty, right? That's what happens when we go into the records. It's peaceful and floaty. And I kind of want to let you just float on off. So I'm going to take a few minutes now to talk about the program that's coming out of this course, so that when we're done, we can all just float away and you can have a good night's sleep, instead of me trying to bring you back to reality by talking about the program. So if this work is resonating with you, I have built out a 6-month container called Alchemy, because fuck scarcity. Because seriously, fuck scarcity, right? Like, we are walking around feeling so stressed about our ability, we're feeling so stressed about this, so trapped by this for so long. And it's happening individually, it's happening collectively. And a large part of it is because we haven't been taught the language. We talked about last night about how money experiences can be read like tarot cards or runes, right? That there's a language to them, but we haven't been taught the language, right? But that's what we're doing here, is starting to figure out, like, literally, what's the formula? When I have a money experience that I don't want to have, What are the steps that I can go through to understand what's actually happening, and then internalize and integrate whatever needs to be integrated, let go whatever needs to be let go of, and create big shifts in my reality, right? Because we don't actually have to stay stuck looping on the same shit over and over again. We're only looping on it because there's something that the universe is trying to get us to see, and we've just forgotten the language of how that works. We don't have to stay in that place, right? And so if you're someone for whom money is a big place of learning, right? If you have been learning the lesson of money over and over again, and you're ready to not be fucking stressed about money anymore, you're ready to be at a place where you feel a deep sense of ease, the kind of ease that's in your body, that I know I'm enough, I know I have enough, I understand how I know I'm enough, I know I have enough, and also I'm not afraid of anything that's going to show up when it comes to money, because I understand how to integrate it and how to let it work with me rather than experience it as something that's against me, right? Because I don't know about you, but I spent a long ass time just in dread that something was going to happen, right? That I was like a split hair away from some catastrophe, because I just felt like I didn't understand, and I knew I knew I was screwing it up, right? So if you want to get out of that, and your specific version might not be that exactly, but if you want to get out of this place where money just feels opaque and stressful, then I would love to talk to you about the program. So it's 6 months long. It's a long program because I want us to really radically shift and transform the way we relate to money. And money has so many tentacled arms and so many different things. I think we need some space to really do that. So it's like I said, it's 6 months long. Each month you can go to the website. Oh, actually I can drop it here so you could just look at it. That would be helpful. And I will just share this, and then we will hop right into the meditation. But if you're ready to have a different experience with money, then take a peek. And if it's not right for you, I'm just glad you're here for this. I hope this is helpful, right? But you'll know, because you'll feel the tug of like, I need more of this, right? Like potentially this has given you something that's like a shift in my perspective. Great, this was fun, thanks. Or you're feeling a little tug that's like, oh, this was an appetizer and I'm hungry. And if this was an appetizer and you're hungry, take a peek. You know, your own inner knowing knows, right? Is there anything else I want to say about it? Yeah, the idea is that I want you to be able to trust yourself, and I want you to be in a space where you're like learning how to evolve personally and using money as a guide to do that. So I also brought in a bunch of amazing guest mentors. We're going to go in the records all the time. We're going to go nice and slowly. It's going to be a lot. It's going to be so much fun. Whenever I like think about this program, I kind of start to cry because it's the thing that I've lived for so long, Someone was like, I was like, I'm kind of nervous to talk about it. Someone was like, well, why? And I was like, because it's me, it's like, I was talking, it was my friend who's a memoirist. And I was like, well, it's me that lives in a program. I was like, I think it's probably similar to how you feel about your book, which your book's coming out next year. And I was like, yeah, exactly. It's like, this is my personal evolution. This is something that I learned through blood, sweat, and tears, right? And I'm so humbled and grateful that I'm at a different place. And I just want anyone who wants to go on that same journey to be part of it. Yeah, and so it's me in course form, which is why fuck is in the title. Okay, so and very briefly we're gonna do the meditation, but I am officially announcing this program on Monday to everybody, but there's special workshop pricing until Sunday. So if you want to sign, if you're feeling that tug, if it feels like a fuck yes, it's a really good idea to sign up before Sunday, because it's an extra special price. And the first 5 people who sign up get a free reading. There's 4 spots left. So you can hop on that. And we're gonna do an 11-1. We're gonna do a like witchy money spell casting party on November 1st. So anyone who signs up before then will also get to participate in that. So that will just be fun. So any questions about that, you can message me, you can book, we can do consult calls, whatever you need. Okay. Any questions about that, you can also drop in the comments if you'd like. Now we'll switch to the records. Okay. So. Before I open the records, I'm going to just walk us through a little grounding and intention setting. So if you want to just take a moment to just bring your focused attention to your heart center. And just take a few deep breaths. Just breathe all the way in. Pause. Breathe all the way out. And as you breathe, just imagine that energy swirling into your heart center. Imagine the space of your heart softening, expanding. As you breathe into your heart, just imagine that any residue that you may have picked up throughout the day that isn't yours, that isn't helpful, that might be energetically in the space of your heart, just imagine it falling away on the exhale. You know, like we wash our hands and we come home. Just letting your breath wash through that area. And in this centered place, I want to ask you to call up some pattern or experience or fear around money that's showing up for you right now. Just trusting the very first thing that comes to mind. And I want to invite you to set the intention that this will be your guide through this guided meditation. That this experience, however painful it might be, is showing you something. And the secret is that when we move through and release those extra painful lessons, which we can do in an instant, the relief is just as great. And just as available. And you are worthy, infinitely worthy of that relief and that peace. And so we are one. Children of the Akashic Records, ushering in and so we are one. Children of the Akashic Records, ushering in and so we are one. Children of the Akashic Records, ushering in the frequency of light. And so we are one. Children of the Akashic Records, flowers bloom where we step. And so we are one, anchoring in the frequency of infinite divine light. Standing in our sovereign light, building an interconnected web of joy, we welcome home shadow and fear, and the journey to remember that we are whole. Allow me to open the Akashic Records of the participants of Money Magic and share with them the wisdom of their soul.
Allow me to open the Akashic records of the participants of Money Magic and share with them the wisdom of their soul. Allow me to open the Akashic records of the participants of Money Magic and share with them the wisdom of their soul. The records are now open. We bring you first and foremost to a place that you know. We ask you to imagine your way all the way to a place that you know and love, a place real or imagined where you know to be safe. What do you notice here in this sacred space? What scents do you take in? What sights do you see? What do you know to be true here with your feet upon this sacred ground? I invite you now to pick up a stone from the earth and hold it in your hand, taking in whatever it is that you observe. Allow this stone to represent the intention you set, the lesson you are learning right now about money, or rather the lesson that money is showing you about your own infinite worth. Perhaps even in this moment, this rock that you hold in your hand as a symbol is giving you a wisdom about this experience you are wanting to complete. Perhaps even now you are knowing something that you did not know before about who you really are. Standing in this sacred space, take one last look around you before placing this rock in the bag at your side. And let yourself walk down the path that has emerged. Noticing perhaps the landscape as it changes around you as you walk down this path towards a new understanding. Of your future. And as you walk, perhaps you move over hills and through streams, and past mountain ranges. And then eventually you come to a clearing. And you step into the clearing. And in this space, you see your ancestor, perhaps the same you've met before. And they step forward with wisdom about the journey ahead. And they give you something you might find useful for the path you are on. Thanking them with an embrace, you make your way back down the path. And this time, the big path begins to move down a hill. And it's a steep and long hill, and you make your way deeper down the hill. And at the base of the hill, you see the mouth of a cave. And in the cave, you know you will find the you who is most wounded and in need when it comes to this pattern you are completing. And so you take outside the cave a lantern that is hanging for just this purpose. And you make your way inside, noticing any sensation that rises for you as you move deeper into the cave. Until there, at the back of the cave, is a door. And in the door, for which you have a key around your neck, you find a set of stairs taking you even deeper. And when you reach the bottom of the cave, the bottom of the stairs, you find the space where this you has been. What do they have you knowing? What do you sense when you see them? What do you understand about who this part of you is and what they might need? In fact, can you ask them to speak it aloud and share with you what they need you to know? Perhaps there is something you can offer them. If it is material, you find it in your bag. And if it is emotional, you let it flow from you. And now you ask this part of yourself if they are ready now to leave this place where they have been. And you may ask them where they would like to go. As you make your way up the stairs, holding the lantern bright so that both of you may see as you leave this space behind. Grateful for the shelter it has offered, although we need it no longer. Making your way up the stairs and out the door, making your way out the cave. And as you step into the sunlight, allowing yourself to blink gently as your eyes adjust to the sunlight. Returning the lantern to the space outside the cave. You take this you and begin to walk up the steep hill. What you find as you begin to walk is that the shape of the hill is changing under your feet. And so rather than climbing a steep hill, you find that the hill itself is moving underneath you and lifting you up so that you are walking a gentle, smooth, and easy path. Because that is the nature of truth when we love the parts of ourself that we have been afraid to love. And so you walk down the path until you return to the place where your ancestors live. And this time, it is your ancestor who greets you and you, both parts of you, in a great embrace. And the great violet flame, lit by Saint Germain and tended by your ancestors, stands in the middle of the clearing. And you walk up hand in hand with this past you. And you see now that both of you are wearing clothes that are ratty and torn and threadbare. And in this moment, you know it is time to cast off this old external shell. And you cast it into the flame. As your ancestors walk forward with warm, luxurious, comfortable clothing. And you dress yourself, knowing you are ready now to experience something new. And then you turn to the part of yourself who has been afraid. And you ask them one last time if there is anything they might need from you. And then you ask what wisdom they have for you. And with a final embrace, knowing that this past you is in wonderful hands with your ancestors, knowing this past you is fully integrated into your heart, you allow yourself to leave the clearing, making your way back down the path. Perhaps you pass mountain ranges and streams and fields. until you return to the place where you began. And in this place, you notice now that there is a difference in how you feel. And that more of you has now returned home. And anchoring into that knowing, allow yourself ever so slowly to return home. To return to your physical body, wiggling your toes, stretching your shoulders, moving your head from side to side. Whenever it feels right, opening your eyes. Thank you for the wisdom, the compassion, the grace. Thank you for the love. The records are now closed. Amen. The records are now closed. Amen. The records are now closed. Amen. Some of you might be feeling so peaceful, you need to go off to sleep immediately, in which case, some of you might have fallen asleep, in which case you got exactly what you needed. You can listen to this again later if you want, or not. If anyone feels called to share what they experienced, I would love to hear. Hannah says, I feel so zened out now. I'm so glad. I had a feeling that would happen.
I'll share.
Awesome.
So yeah, so many tears. Oh my God, that was great, Kylie. So I started when I was like start in a place, I was at Small World at Disney World, which was delightful. And so just for context, what I'm going through right now, my landlord called me Saturday and said that she needs to sell the house that I live in. And I moved into it 11 weeks ago. I am like, this is really stressful. It's really stressful. And it's brought up so much panic. And like, I didn't rent a place until I'd been in my company for a year. And I like knew what my like minimum threshold was that I'd been making every month. And like, this has brought up so much profound terror in my body. And like, I have enough money to go pay for a place for 6 months and I'm panicked. And so I start out in Small World and then go to a beach that my son and I go to a lot, walk down a path. And of course they had me swim down a path because I'm a water baby. And I like get to the cave and there like in the little me was the 6-year-old me who always felt like she had to move because we moved every 2 years. And she was wrapped in the wallpaper from my childhood bedroom, like wearing it like a blanket, like don't make me move again. And it was so sad and scary. And I just, of course she wants to be at Disney World. Of course she does. Like, why wouldn't she want to be at Disney World? And I'm feeling better, but I'm feeling so much grief.
Yeah.
Part of me that has to just like that has since COVID had 1, 2, 3. This will be our 4th move since COVID started. And I have a 7-year-old. And I'm just feeling very much like I'm putting him through the same trauma that I went through with moving all the time. And it's adding a whole nother layer to this and I'm devastated. And it was really powerful to have, like, I knew that that part of me was being activated. I didn't realize how much
Yeah.
she was really how terrorized she is by this, because I think that's
Yeah.
really the right word.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. That was really powerful.
Oh, thank you for sharing that with us. You just, yeah. The biggest thing that I was like coming to me as like a follow-up is just like letting yourself sleep tonight, because I feel like you moved some big energy, and obviously like what's happening is like there's a lot of layers, right? Like we met with one part, and obviously this is like a big thing where there might be other parts, but the biggest thing that's coming to mind is just like you were saying, like you feel all this grief now, and I feel like letting yourself sleep is the thing that I'm hearing most loudly. Is just like letting yourself sleep and resting, and then tomorrow feeling into what comes next. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. And I think, you know, your story is also just like a beautiful example of like, even when we know, like, oh yeah, this is something I experienced as a kid and it's happening again and that fucking sucks. Like, we don't usually actually realize how much that part of us is actually like in the driver's seat, and how much they are like kicking up a fuss, in this case, like sending you into panic because it's her panic, which is also obviously yours, right? Like, I'm not creating this parts thing to try to make you feel to disassociate, but to just like introduce a different
my work too.
yeah. I know I'm using you as a guinea pig.
Okay. Oh, okay. Never mind.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm using you as
no
a guinea
idea
pig.
what you're talking about.
Thank you for playing along. But like, yeah, so we just sometimes don't always we aren't always cognizant of how like deeply painful, right? Because this is the thing, we know about trauma, that when we experience trauma, that part of ourselves is stuck in that loop, right? This is the thing, which maybe I should have said like in the beginning. It's like the tail end that I'm explaining this part of quantum healing, but this is why this is so fucking powerful, because that part of yourself is looping until you can help her, right? Until you can help her not be looping. And there's lots of different ways you can do it, right? You can sit in a therapist chair for a decade, and sometimes that can really help, right? I did that and it helped me in a lot of ways. You can, you know, do energy work. You can find different ways to meet and integrate this part of yourself. But the thing about quantum healing that's so important, I believe, and why it's been such a powerful tool in my life, is it allows us with like laser precision to understand exactly what's happening, right? And then literally rescue her, so that that part of yourself is no longer looping in that shitty place, right? So you might have the like you know, if we think about that, there's thoughts and there's beliefs, and the thoughts that have the stronghold are thoughts that are anchored into this deep belief, right? But now that we've shifted the beliefs because this part of you isn't so fucking traumatized anymore, the thoughts are going to have the same deep anchors and hooks, right? So this is where I believe so much in this work, is because yes, let's use money as a space, like let's really unpack the language of money in a new way, but then B, let's move shit quickly. Like, I have an Aries moon, I'm so fucking impatient, right? Like let's move this quickly, because we came here, we're intended, our soul wants us to live a life of joy and purpose, right? We're not having these experiences because we're supposed to suffer through them, but we don't culturally provide access to these like deeply magical tools that completely can change the game overnight, right? Like, look at Kim's story of like, oh, we met last night and I, you know, shifted these perspectives around waiting for the next paycheck, and I walked into work, it just happened to be there the day that this huge sale came through, right? Like, those are the things that start to happen for us. But even, I think even more importantly and even more profound, is the thing that I'm even more grateful for, is that the terror gets to leave our body, because having money situations create terror is shitty. It's awful. You can't even think straight, right? Shame, fear, panic, like these are not emotions that are pleasant. So rather than have to just kind of march your way through them, let's just move that shit and move it quick. So thank you for sharing, Lizzie. Does anyone else have anything that anyone feel called to share their experience? Does anybody have any questions or final parting thoughts? My mentors likes to say, is there anything that you feel like you need to say to feel complete? And I like that turn of phrase. Okay. That was big energy work. So drink a lot of water and let me know how you're all feeling tomorrow. Okay. Thank you. Seriously, this workshop, these past 2 days, just the final thing that I'll say. The past 2 days, this workshop, as I mentioned, like it comes from my own experiences in which I had so many moments of just feeling like I'm never going to figure this out. And it is such a gift to be, now I'm going to cry again. It is such a gift to be able to share with all of you something that is hopefully helpful, because it feels like a real honor that you've given me Thursday and Friday night to, be in your energy and share some of the things that I think have been really powerful for me. And, I don't take it lightly that you've given this time to this space that we've created together. And I'm really, really, really humbled and grateful. And thank you. Bye.
Can we hang out for like 2 minutes?
Yeah, but
Oh yeah, if people are gonna stay. Yeah.